So I think the first time I saw Orry's work was in 2022. I was on Instagram, and it was a piece called Omenai, which means three children in the Yoruba language. When I saw the work, it was just striking. The way she was able to mix different elements to create this piece was just extraordinary to me. And I just fell in love with the work from then. And we started posting her work on our Instagram page, the online official page, which is the Roderick brand. And we started posting her work, and a big actor and collector actually reached out looking to purchase her work. And I just connected the dots. And since that time, we've kind of locked in ever since, building an organic relationship. And that's how it started.
I was wondering, I like processes. For people who don't know, I used to work in finance. So don't be surprised if I ask a lot of questions related to processes. So I have a question regarding the process for creating this exhibition. What was it? And the other question I have is related to the title, Visions of Home, Lagos to Accra. Can you talk about that? Why did you choose this title, and how did you create this exhibition?
Yeah. So the idea of the exhibition, I've been thinking about the idea, for a few years actually. And I think, one of the things I wanted to do in Chicago was, I wanted to see something that reminded me of home, right? And that's where Visions of Home came from, where, I would go back to Lagos, I would travel to Accra as well, and I would just get immersed into the art scene there. I would do studio visits with artists, and I wanted to kind of really bring that back to the US, bring it back to Chicago. And that's where the whole concept came from. The process of curating the shows, all these artists I've been working with, I've been kind of following their careers for the past few years. And really, I was able to kind of build relationships with them over time. And, it just came together. And I think, the theme of the show, I think Orry's work is actually brings it all together. Just the Vision of Home, where you see the Hawking Hero series with, women hawking over the traffic. She just really brings it together. And I think she's kind of the anchor on the show. She's the missing piece of the puzzle. I had all the artists in mind, and, Orry I was like, let me tap into Orry. I know she's going to bring some fire to the table.
That's very interesting. You don't add something, Orry?
Hello. Hello everyone. My name is Orry Shenjobi, multidisciplinary artist from Lagos, Nigeria, and I just want to thank you all for being here on Saturday. Thank you for coming out to hear our talk. Really appreciate it. Thank you to Gbenro and Adama as well. It's nice to see you all here.
So, Orry, before we dive into your creative process, I would like to know more about yourself, in the sense that when did you know that you were an artist? And by extension, a multidisciplinary artist?
I would say I kind of always knew that there was, this creative spark within. But in terms of my journey, I would say really COVID year, that's when I said to myself, okay, I actually want to do this. I didn't actually say it out loud, but I just knew that, okay, this is my path. I've been doing art long before then. The first time I kind of knew that, okay, not everyone could do this was when I was about 7. One of my cousins saw me drawing like comics, so I used to draw out of like Cartoon Network comics, and they used to do this comic in Nigeria called Super Strikers. So I used to like replicate that, and it used to be exact. She saw my stuff and she was like, "Oh, did you draw this?" I was like, "Yeah." She was like, how? I was like, how do you know how to do this? I thought everybody knew how to, yeah, I thought everybody knew how to draw. So I think that early on, I was like, okay, so there's something obviously a bit different here. But in terms of me actually establishing that, okay, this is what I want to do career-wise, I think that was in 2020. It was a very pivotal year because I had just applied for my master's program as well. I thought I wanted to be an automobile designer, I wanted to work for Mercedes and design the interiors of cars, and then COVID hit. I was getting ready for my show in Lagos, my exhibition in Lagos at the end of the year. And I just spent that whole year in this tiny studio, myself and the pieces, and I was just going through the motions day by day. And after the show was birthed, that's when I was like, okay, yeah, I think I can do this.
Thank you. Thank you for being an artist.
Thank you.
So, you were born in London, and then you moved back to Nigeria, to Lagos, with your parents, and then you left Nigeria at what age?
I was 16, so just after, so in Nigeria we had this secondary school, just after year 11.
Okay, so this is a question for both of you guys. I would like to talk about the concept of space and place. So, from London to Nigeria to Lagos, and then from Lagos to London, how these places influence the way you perceive yourself as an artist. And you, Gbenro, as a D, if you consider yourself as an
Okay, so for me, it's a very dynamic kind of journey or relationship between Lagos, Nigeria, and London, UK. I would say because, yes, I went to school there, yes, I was born there, but in terms of the connection, I never really felt like, okay, this is my home, this is my place. It was always just, okay, we're in London or we're in parts of the UK for something. I didn't see my people around me every single day. I didn't see, myself living there, like really putting down roots. And I think once I started school in England, that's when I became super appreciative of where I'm from. Like the discussion we were having earlier on, like you said, it's really a privilege to know, where you're from and your background. And it was when I moved that I was like, okay, yeah, home is the best, really. Yeah.
So I think it's something similar for me. I think I was raised in Chicago, so I think that dynamic of Chicago also I have that in me as well, in the sense that I can always go back and forth from Chicago to Lagos, and when I'm in Lagos, it's like that impacts me as well from just a business grind standpoint, because just opportunity in Nigeria, just the hustle and bustle of it really impacts me in the sense that from a regular standpoint. I think the last time I was there, was when I was kind of creating this whole brand where I was doing studio visits in Nigeria, I was meeting with artists, and I would just ask them, like, how are you selling your work? How are you, who's giving you a platform? And they would just give me different answers, one day I just said to myself, I was like, how do I make the biggest impact, on artists back home, right? And it just really became this whole thing that we're doing now, where I want to serve as a bridge between Africa and the global world, and giving them a platform and a voice, and championing a voice as well on a consistent basis. So I think that they both kind of shape me to what I am today.
I agree. About the words that are displayed here, we see strong indicators of what seems to be ladies who sell stuff in the street. And I feel like, as I told you earlier, I feel like I know them in the sense that when you travel to any big African city, you will see a group of ladies, young ladies sometimes, young boys, who sell stuff. And can you tell me about the context behind these works? And I think one of the work is titled Auntie Goes.
Auntie Bose.
Bose. Who is she?
So, I'll just start from the very beginning how this came to be. So last year, I was approached to do a show in London, and I went back to Lagos and I was, going through my files and thinking, okay, what do I want to show? What story do I want to tell? And I started remembering, like, when I was in primary school, after school, we would sit in traffic for like hours on end, and I used to get like snacks in the traffic, or like drinks. There's like a popular drink called Lacasera or Gala, like different things, granolas, whatever you want really. And my mind was just kind of playing those memories over and over again. So that's kind of how the series came to be, and I titled it Walking Heroes because, if you've ever been to Lagos, traffic jams they're bad. And, as a kid, sitting in that for 4 hours, 5 hours, not moving, these women, I used to think of them as like lifesavers. Like, okay, if they weren't here, what would I eat? What would I drink? What would I be doing? So I dedicated it to them because they were so integral in my like youth story when I was in school. And just thinking about it on a deeper level, when you ask who's Auntie Bose is not just a woman that's hawking her goods or selling, making her money, but I see her as every woman really, because she's not only providing for herself and her family, but she's kind of a pillar of the community. She's standing strong for like so many people, and she's giving back, even if she might not even know it herself. It's a very humble profession, but without those people, there will be a lot of people like me as a kid who would kind of go hungry. So I dedicated it to them. I call it like a gold series. I dedicated it to them because I do see them as heroes. And women in general, African women across board, are extremely strong figures, extremely powerful. Might not always be the loudest, but definitely the strongest in the room.
So, when you produce these works, or even in general, when you work, this is a weird question, so if you can't answer, just say, this is a weird question. But since I'm not an artist, unfortunately, I don't think like an artist. But I was wondering, what is your thinking process? What do you think of when you produce work? I know it's a weird question, right?
No, actually, it's a dynamic question. I would say many things, and at the same time, nothing. Many things because there's a technical aspect, with the layering of materials and how to fit this where and what to use and what will last in terms of material longevity and durability. but also nothing because when I create, I don't necessarily have everything figured out. So I kind of just, I'm fully led by the Spirit in those moments. I sit with my work a lot. So if I have a photograph that I'm developing, I'll sit with it for a few days and kind of just let it speak to me, tell me what it needs and where it needs it to be, and I just go with the flow.
So, for these works, you paint it on the photographs as if you wanted the women to be the focal point, and you hid the background. You did it on purpose, and why did you choose to do that? Is it because you wanted to give them the recognition they deserve?
Okay, exactly that. If you're familiar with my other work, backgrounds in other pieces can be very busy. So what I wanted to do with this collection is strip down totally and give the flowers to the woman, the heroes, and you just focus on them. Because like I said, African woman, strongest, but not necessarily the loudest. So I wanted, these pieces to kind of just highlight that. Don't be distracted by anything else in the background. Just focus on these subjects.
And at the same time, you mix different materials. So with regards to materiality, you choose different pieces of different materials. So I guess my questions are, the first one is that you feel like the work is 3D, and as if you can touch them. Is it correct? Is that what you wanted the result to be?
Well, okay, so I've never been an artist that makes work that people can't necessarily interact with. So from as far back as like 14, I used to make work with mixed materials, so different types of paints, what I had access to. So mixed media for me it dates back to like when I was a teenager. Over the years I've just refined it, and that's because I'm big on sustainability. I studied product design, so I'm big on materiality, and I like textures, and I like tact. And also, with the 3D or 4D element of the work, I want people to be able to experience what I experienced in the moment of taking the photograph. So I add, I would say, live elements, so you can actually envision yourself where, the subject was at that time, and how it would feel, and their clothing, or whatever they're carrying on their heads. Literally just to create conversation and challenge people actually to think outside the box. Art doesn't have to be a set way. If you're a painter, you don't have to just paint flat or in a certain way. Create conversation around the pieces. Change people's perspective as well. Yeah.
That's really interesting. You mentioned earlier the place, in brackets, of Nigerian women in the society. I don't want to generalize, but I feel like it's the same challenge in any African country, the place of the African women in the society. So, as an artist who represents African culture, do you feel a sense of responsibility to communicate specific narratives or social issues through your work? And if that's the case, how do you navigate?
not necessarily social issues, but just educating people on where I'm from and my culture. Because I think the way, so Africans for a long time have kind of let other people tell their stories. So what I try to do with my work is kind of flip that on the head and show people where I'm from through my work. And over the years, exhibiting in different parts of the world, you get people, looking at the work and having conversation with them, and some people are like in awe, because what the media shows you is not what you're seeing in front of you at the moment. And they think, oh wow, okay, I didn't know this was how, parts of Lagos looked, or how people kind of got on every day. So I wouldn't say social issues, I would say just educating people on the broader perspective.
So I guess it's a good way to talk about the international recognition you have at Venice. You have an exhibition called Awambe. Is it the right pronunciation?
Awambe.
Awambe. So it's N. Awambe.
Awambe.
A celebration of community and culture. So is there a dialogue between the body of work that is displayed in Venice and the works that are here?
Most definitely. My work through and through is about community and the importance of that. Living in the UK, living in London, you can tell the stark differences. The West is very individualistic, and African countries are about community and uplifting. And help your neighbor. Everybody knows each other. It's just one big group. So yeah, my work definitely, all collections have that running theme. It's the celebration of our community and our culture.
Yes, as a vision.
Yeah.
So as an African artist based in the Western world, in a Western country, in the UK, how do you feel African artists are represented in the global art scene?
This conversation, we have a conversation like this all the time. And, other artists or between artists or even, galleries or people in the industry and Nigerians, when I'm talking to Nigerians, and we all say the same thing. We have to create these spaces for ourselves. Nobody's going to do it for us. So, in the West, they've already spent time doing that for themselves. They have their institutions, they have their foundations, they have their galleries, they have, their fairs. We need to band together and do that for ourselves and promote our own work and take care of, our culture and our historical artifacts ourselves, because nobody's gonna do that for us.
So then the other question I want to ask is for you, Gbenro, is as a leader, what role does Orry and other artists you work with, how their artistic voice play in representing the type of narrative you wish to highlight through your gallery program?
I just want to touch on that. I think you're right in the sense that you have to create your own world. Nobody's going to give you anything, right? So just create your own world. But to touch on your question, I think the artists in the show I like when I see an artwork that tells stories, right? It evokes emotions and challenges perspective as well, right? And I think those are the artists that I like to show. And I think, Orry's work does just that, right? So I think, with the gallery and kind of what I want to share with the world would be that, you can come here and see a vision of, Lagos, women talking in Lagos traffic, or seeing, people dancing in Accra at the peace in the back, or, Africans in love, just showing that, just telling stories, right? So that's what I like to show. I think that's what I want to share with the world. So that's it.
So for both of you guys, what do you think is the future of the artist deal and dealer relationship? And what are the key success factors for this collaboration? Because personally I see it as a collaboration. Well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, if it's not a collaboration, but what do you think are the key success factors? So what do you guys?
For me, I would say someone like Gbenro, he's like a custodian. So, as an artist, like my job is to make the work and see that through. But we need people like him to kind of not just show the work, but be a custodian to the culture and what we're presenting. We need more custodians that look like us.
I would say the relationship between an art dealer or a gallerist, or with an artist, I think it should be organic. And I feel like the artist should feel safe in the sense that they know that this gallery or this art dealer has their best interest at heart, right? And really champions their work, really likes their work. It's not just about selling the work. You have to like the work to be passionate about it, right? And I think I'm very passionate about all the artists that I show. And I think, along with being safe, I think, the artist should feel like, they can come to the dealer and talk about anything. Because at the end of the day, it's a partnership. The artist doesn't work for the gallery, it's a partnership. So, that's how I feel.
So I have one last question, and then you guys can ask any questions you might have. What do you expect beyond what we just talked about? What do you guys expect from your viewers to take away from this exhibition?
For me, it would be primary perspective on not just what they see in front of them, but how they perceive where we're from.
I would say access, right? I think, on both sides. So access from an artist's perspective, getting into a new market, right? And access from a collector. Whether you're a working collector, you're a veteran collector, you can come and buy art, right? And have access to art that's being made, on the continent, right? So I would say access. I would say, again, storytelling. I want you to be able to share stories, share the stories of other artists, and also, like I said before, just giving them a platform to be creative and show their work.
Well, thank you guys. I open the floor to questions, and then we can have a small awambe. It's small, we don't have the thousands. And thank you.
Thank you. Hello. So I was born and raised in Chicago. Would identify as Black American in the sense that my ancestors were slaves here, and that's why I'm here. But one of the things I think about, especially in spaces like this, and as I've navigated my own relationships, is the connection between Black folks within the diaspora in general. always kind of thinking about how we can mend our relationships with each other. I remember going to a college friend's, her grandmother's funeral. It was an Igbo ceremony. She's from Nigeria. And there was a part of the ceremony where I just felt myself crying, and I felt like this thing that had been missing in me. And I think a lot of Black American folks and Caribbean folks, we feel this void. And so when I come to spaces like this, I'm like, oh yes, I see so many familiar things that have been fragmented within our own histories. So I think one of the things I'm curious about from you all as folks from Africa is what is your perspective on the connections between us within the diaspora and how art can play a part within that?
I think that's a good question. You know, I think there is a connection. And I think that even when you have these conversations, it seems like when people have these conversations, it's about division, and it's not about division. It's about connection, and I think as more I guess Americans, Black Americans, they want to connect back with the continent. Go back to the continent. You always feel welcome, but at the same time, there is still a lot of Africans in diasporas where you can connect with, right? So I think there is a connection, and I don't feel like there is a division. So that's what I'm saying.
Wow, what he said. I think definitely, like he said, you should visit. And African countries, I haven't been to all of them, I've only been to a few. They have a way of centering you. So you can visit, I don't know, for example, Botswana or Namibia, and totally different cultures, but you would have that same grounded feeling. So I would encourage you to visit and just have that experience for yourself. Yeah.
If I may add, you have the choice between 54 countries. So I think you have plenty of possibilities. Be open. And there is one feeling that I always have when I go back to any African country, maybe not the ones that are in the north, but in West Africa, is not being part of the minority. This feeling when you go there and everyone looks like you, and blending, it feels so good. So every time that you can go, just go. Don't ask yourself questions. And it's home. You are from there in a way. And even if you don't want it, you are from there. And they will welcome you. So go. Just go.
I would also say to you, since you're in Chicago, get to know another Black people. Just have African friends. You can start that. Then they'll invite you and then you'll cheat up for you.
And you have the local experience, the real one, the tourist guy.
First, I'd like to say thank you. This was extremely enriching. I felt like in a short time we've been together, I felt very enriched, very touched by everything you said. It's very enlightening, especially for those who aren't necessarily in the art world. So I appreciate thank you all for putting this together. I guess my question is, I'm Nigerian. I have 2 Yoruba parents, as born here, but growing up, it was hard to kind of break outside of the normal traditional values and what they expected you to do. So I guess the first half of my question is, how did you deal with that? Second half is, how is Nigeria now? I was last there in February, so I've been there, but I'm not in the art scene, so I don't, But how basically, do you feel supported? Do you feel like artists are being supported? Gbenro, this is to you too, who's kind of involved. Like how is that, I guess, just kind of in the more recent years, like is it evolving, is it changing, or do you feel like it's difficult for artists to thrive? Like in Nigeria, it's kind of, I'll say, more traditional in some respects. Music and everything is changing now, but I guess that's my other half of my question.
I'll answer number 2 first. I think in terms of the art scene or landscape, we're doing the best we can with what we have. It takes a lot of investment to kind of pull things off, especially when there's poor infrastructure. So I would say, in terms of feeling supported, I'd say yes. A lot of people are championing, artists and their artwork and trying to get them to a place where, not just in terms of like to sell but well-being, there's a lot of programs that are residencies that people conduct, international, people that live abroad as well, that give back. So there's a lot happening. It's like virgin territory, but I would say in the last few years there's been huge growth in the industry. And okay, I was going to the first one, so
Go ahead.
So to answer your first question, breaking out of the traditional settings or conference. For me, I'm the first child. I'm very independent, so I kind of just do what I want. Yes, there's gonna be, I had no background. That's my mom actually, no background. So she was extremely supportive from the very beginning. She saw the vision, but my dad was a bit more cautious. He's a finance guy, so he's an Adama, so he was like, what's this so? But I think, with time and education, he's gotten around to it. It wasn't necessarily easy, but like I said, I didn't back down. I just charged on. I did what I wanted, and thank God I'm here today. So yeah.
I think we're talking about the African contemporary art. I think there's still a ways to go, but I do see that there's some traction there, where in the sense that I'm starting to see more African artists actually on the continent showing their work in different markets, whether it's the U.S., whether it's Dubai, whether it's just you see it more prevalent now. But I do feel like there's a ways to go, and that's the reason why I wanted to build a platform like this, really just to really help in any way that I can, right? To create that impact and being able to provide them a platform, right? So just things like this, and more people collecting, and I think it'll get to a place where it should be.
So hello, my name is Kofi Benton. I wanted to ask, as an artist and an artist collector, some of the challenges that you all have in the field of collecting art and being an artist. Can you expound on that?
Very simple, money. In the Western world, there's a lot of programs that support, so financially there's grants, there's a structure to their markets, but back home, zero. So you have to kind of rely a lot on, the kindness of HMIs to kind of help the industry and support and invest. I would say, honestly, for us as artists, it will be, especially in the beginning once you're starting out, it will be the capital investment.
I guess I'll consider myself a collector as well. Art dealer and gallerist. And if I'm thinking about the challenges, I would say, when I go to different galleries or go to art fairs, I want to see art that I like. I want to see the people that look like me as well, right? I just don't want to see anything that's kind of whitewashed, or I want to see people that look like me. And I think it's a challenge in the sense that, you're not going to see that many artworks that, that are black figuration or even abstract from black artists. You're not going to see that too much. I think those are the challenges that people kind of dealing with, where, we have to build platforms and create our own worlds to make that happen.
But if I may add as well, can you hear me?
I think it's also important to take into account the fact that most of African countries were independent only in the 60s. They were very young countries. So this is something that I like to say, but I feel like that it's a bit true in the sense that most of African countries are actually startups. Everything needs to be built in the health sector, in education, infrastructure. Everything needs to be done. And the challenge is actually to convince some people who can afford art to buy art, not cars. It's very basic. It's a very standard discussion, because they're going to ask you sometimes, why do I need to spend this amount of money knowing that my parents at the village need my support? Or what if my family from the village visits me at the city and they see all these works that are worth thousands of dollars? How can I justify that? So there is also a problem of mentality, in the sense that the countries are very young, and most of the people are maybe only the first or the generation of educated people who have access to art and who understand really the power of art, because they have other problems. They have standard problems, like access to health and education. We talked about the status of women in the Nigerian society, but it's because they don't have access to education. That's why there's things in the street, because they didn't go to school. So having a conversation about collecting, it's only with a very small community of privileged people who studied abroad, who is intellectual from an art perspective. So from my point of view, I think that's the challenge, to educate the people about the impact of art. And we are starting, and we need to build a very robust ecosystem. It's about having artists, dealers, but also African curators, museums, private museums, but also public institutions. And there is also a connection with the fact that the policies that we have, the cultural policies that we have, are from before the independence. So this needs to be updated so that we can have the foundations to grow together.
Kind of piggybacking on some of the way the conversation has been going about people deciding to apply more art on the continent / like support in terms of resources. This is to kind of in your wheelhouse, Gbenro, but also for Orry. Was the level of notoriety that artists will reach where they become more popular into Western markets? Instead of the US or Paris, wherever, and their work becomes a bit more expensive. Do we feel like the responsibility is on the artists to sometimes hold back some of that work so it's more accessible to people who are on the continent or people who are in the diaspora? that might not have reached that level of like spend? Or do we think it's on sort of the curator, dealer to, kind of build out their own collection and make that more accessible in terms of like, bringing down price points? Because ultimately, when you're deciding to price a piece of art to take it to auction, there are market forces, right? You can decide to make it a bit cheaper. But are we, until we have like the capability to pay 10, 20, 50 million for a piece of art, whose responsibility is it to ensure that it's accessible to people on the continent, to people on the diaspora?
I mean, I think that's a really, really good question, actually. And I think I would kind of piggyback off what you said around just making sure that these African countries are providing the resources and investment into the art market on the continent, right? So you have your private museums, you have your galleries, and you're pouring into the kind of creative community, because at the same time, while you're doing that, everyone around will start visiting these museums and being able to catch the artists at an early stage, right? Because these artists are in the emerging market where you can pick up these pieces before they get to a place where they're selling the pieces, to the U.S. or to the rest of the world. But at the same time, I also think that from an artist's perspective, you're making a living, so you have to sell your work to eat. So it's a very tricky question, But I'm gonna always lean on the artist side. From a creative standpoint, they have to sell their work, and if it has to be sold outside of the continent, that's what you have to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you said, especially the make a living part, because a lot of people that might not be familiar with the life of an artist, they don't actually know what goes into creating these pieces. A lot of people just think, you roll out of bed, you have an idea, you just draw or paint or color. But in actual fact, making art is just as expensive. It's extremely expensive, it's extremely capital intensive. So, as basic as like paint is not cheap. It's it is not cheap. Framing isn't cheap. Presenting the work, and we're not even talking about the overhead costs of, a gallery, for example. They have to pay their staff. They have to, and all of that is off the sales of the artwork of the artist. So it's a business from top to bottom. It's not just we're just doing as we feel and we're just going along putting 10K here, 20K here. No, it's a business. And that's how it should be looked at. If you're providing financial services, you're going to charge for your IP, they're going to charge. So it's the same thing with artists. In the music industry, if you want to go and see Ashake, you're going to pay $200. It's the same thing. It's a business. So let's start thinking about it like that, and thinking about it like, these artists are essentially fully operational companies. We have overheads as well, we have bills, multiple bills at home, at your studio. So, we have to start thinking about it like that, because we deserve the support. If a piece is $200, if you can support the artist, support the artist. Yeah. Any more questions?
Okay. So before we end, I wanted to take the opportunity to tell you how much I appreciate you. I had a vision, I had an idea in my head, and you supported that, right? You came with some extraordinary work for this exhibition, and I wanted to give you your flowers. So.
I'll say thank you again, because I'm a firm believer in, chasing your dreams before your dreams start to chase you. And thank you for believing in all of us, not just myself. It's very difficult, and we need people like you, like I said, custodians in our corner, fighting for us, because other people are not going to do that. So, hats off to you, congratulations. It's not easy, but I believe in the vision, I believe in the journey. And when you start, you definitely know where you're going to finish. So, we thank God. Thank you again.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you again, everyone. I really enjoyed this afternoon. Very engaging questions, dynamic conversation, and thank you as well for moderating. This is my first time in Chicago, so it's been a fantastic trip. I'll definitely be coming back.